Tonight, at the end of the 19th century, you are trudging through the harsh and pristine wilderness of Alaska, following the grueling daily routine of a hunter, an explorer, or perhaps a gold prospector. When you close your eyes, you begin to feel the weight of the fatigue and silence outside. That sharp, glacial cold that seeps through even the thick fur enveloping your body is not just an atmosphere. It is the very essence of the struggle for survival. Do you hear the approaching howl of the blizzard? It is the first sound of existence in this struggle for life, just below the Arctic Circle, far from civilization. Waking up in this unforgiving landscape is not a simple routine. It is confronting nature's greatest test. Friends, after you enter the video, I have a small request. They work all day to store the video in this dimension every night. You can show your appreciation for my effort by becoming a member of the channel via the join button below. I keep membership fees at very low prices, like 30 to 40 lira. The more channel members I have, the more YouTube recommends me to people. Thank you very much in advance. Let's begin. Let go of the day's darkness, the to-do list, and the clutter in your mind into the flow of a warm river. Even if the day's stress distracts you here and now, remember this: nothing is more valuable than your well-being. Take a deep breath and imagine the first step taken onto Alaska's snow. There is no outside world anymore. Only you, the silence, and the path ahead. In the deep winter slumbers of Alaska, before the renewed lights are seen, you feel the moisture-laden layers of air inside your tent. You even notice that during pauses, the warm vapor from your breath freezes the instant it hits the common tent fabric. This condition, the microclimate created by internal moisture, is not just a discomfort. It is also a critical part of the delicate balance of survival. While the night's sharpest cold presses against the door, your breath from inside, on one hand, provides you with vital warmth. On the other hand, it challenges the tent's ability to maintain dryness. Already in the 19th century, in these primitive tent structures, keeping the heat inside was a major achievement in itself. While moisture evaporating, freezing, and not leaking through the material is one of the most insidious enemies. The cold outside creates constant pressure for air exchange due to the temperature difference, and to counter this pressure, you must adjust the tent's top ventilation millimeter by millimeter. This adjustment, even the movement of your hand while making it, shows how delicate this balance is. If you allow more ventilation than needed, the stove's barely maintained heat escapes, and your body temperature begins to drop. On the other hand, if sufficient air outflow is not provided, the accumulated carbon monoxide and moisture create a thick layer of ice on the walls. This ice will begin to melt during the day as the stove burns, filling the tent interior with drips and soaking your sleeping bag, making the next night dangerously cold. In this era without modern waterproof materials, battling moisture is a tangible physics lesson. Like the humidity and mold problems sailors faced in ship holds and other harsh geographies of the period, you too must contend with the structural weakness caused by frozen water vapor here in the middle of the snow. Staying dry is not a simple comfort. It is the fundamental requirement for your circulatory system to function healthily. You reach your hand toward the inner layer made of conifer branches and soft moss. Underneath this layer, you feel the inner lining is slightly damp. This slight dampness is an indicator of the life inside for you. It means the environment is not completely dry, nor is it excessively humid, or the stove is working insufficiently. Everything is a point of balance. While the thermometer outside shows minus 30 degrees Celsius, even minus 5 degrees Celsius inside your tent is a great victory. Because this difference gives you the opportunity to dry clothes and store supplies. The most important part of this routine is the final moisture check you do before sleeping. At that moment, if the air you exhale dissipates quickly, it means there is good ventilation for sleeping. If heavy vapor and condensation accumulate in one place, you must know that the moisture accumulating overnight could reach dangerous levels. Now you try to raise the stove's heat. As you carefully place dry birch logs, imagine the column of warm air rising towards the top of the tent. This column acts as a natural fan, carrying moist and stale air upward and pushing it out through the ventilation hole. Understanding these simple convection currents is the physical secret of survival in polar regions. Like the air pollution problem caused by enclosed, chimney-less fireplaces in Europe, here you must battle not with visible gases, but with frozen water crystals. This moisture also naturally affects your tobacco and gunpowder. Excess moisture accelerates their deterioration, zeroing out your hunting capacity or defense abilities. Therefore, before the first light of day appears, checking not just the vapor of your breath, but also whether your materials are dry, is a visible step in your routine. These early movements test your ability to sense and respond to the slightest nuance in your environment. The thin sound of the wind seeping through the insulation material whispers the general direction and strength of the wind to you. Moisture control is also a form of sound control. The cracking sound of ice forming on the tent walls, if it's too loud and rapid, means the temperature difference between inside and outside is very aggressive and the heating is being overworked. In this case, you must prevent thermal shock by keeping the stove at a lower, slower temperature. This is an effort to manually achieve, through experience and instinct, the sensitivity that modern smart thermostats in homes try to provide. This complex dance of moisture and heat control is the first oracle that tells you how much energy you will expend for the rest of the day, how comfortably you will progress, and most fundamentally, whether you will survive or not. With the first pale blue light seeping into the tent, the last thing you check is whether the gloves and socks you hung near the stove are completely dry. If they still hold a slight dampness, you place them in the nearest place, right next to your body fur. Your body heat is a reliable, energy-saving dryer. In the arduous expeditions of the era, keeping your hands and feet healthy was the only way to prevent frostbite and amputation. In short, controlling the tent's microclimate is actually a battle to protect your limbs. Now, as the first task, we move to the moment of lacing up the heavy, wide snowshoes. This is perhaps the most monotonous but also the most critical preparation for your daily journey. You feel the wooden frame of the shoe and the taut leather. Your fingers, with dexterity born of variability, work to maintain the continuity of your winter boots. Ensuring the bindings of these parts are secure means much more than just protecting your ankles from missteps or increasing surface traction on snow to distribute your weight. Every knot is a commitment to a communal way of life. The surrounding white silence is broken only by your deep, slow breaths. This sound combines with the slight creak of the wood as you touch the snowshoe. Under the general conditions of that era, snowshoes represented sustainable, energy-saving progress over speed. When you hold the leather straps of the snowshoe in your hands, the leather stiffened by the cold requires you to warm it briefly with your body heat to make it workable and pliable again. This brief moment of contact is a silent communication with your material. If the straps don't soften enough, they might break during lacing, or the shoe may not sit perfectly on your foot. The precision of the lacing is directly related to the circulation in your feet later in the day. If tied too tightly, circulation is cut off, and you risk frostbite within just a few hours. If tied too loosely, the shoes slip. Their inefficiency forces you to expend extra effort, leading to vital energy loss. Finding the ideal balance between these two extremes depends solely on the feel in your fingers and your experience. During this ritual, the moment you kneel or bend down is a moment of temporary surrender of your posture to the task. The air layer immediately above the cold snow is often the most freezing layer. Therefore, the lacing process is quick but never rushed. Securing the straps in place with minimal, effortless movement is a sign of physical economy. Even the lacing style carries a cultural heritage. The wide, round snowshoes used by Alaska's native peoples distribute weight over a maximum area, preventing sinking even in soft, deep snow. The narrower, longer models used by European explorers were more suited to covering distance quickly. However, they required more physical strength. You use a hybrid lacing technique most suitable for your geography and snow type. When you attach the snowshoe to your foot, you hear the hiss of the webbing appearing beneath your foot. This flexibility, combined with its durability, absorbs impact and reduces the load on your knees. In this period, carefully selected, stretched leather served where modern shock absorption would be. If this leather has loosened overnight, you must retighten the entire web to restore the shoe's flotation property. The strong, lightweight birch frames, like those in Athabascan winter footwear, provide maximum support with minimum weight while preserving silence. Because sound, especially when hunting or entering unknown territory, is a fatal mistake. The first step taken with the snowshoe is the moment the ritual is complete. The shoe glides lightly over the snow, and the sound produced is a soft shushing. If this sound is a hard crunch, it means the snow underneath is frozen and brittle. This will make your trek more difficult later or increase the risk of breaking through thin ice layers beneath the snow. Snowshoes are not just a walking tool, they are also sensitive sensors giving you feedback about snow density and ice integrity. Unlike the heavy, noisy steps of large boots in 18th century Europe, this silent progression in polar geography is the first rule of remaining in harmony with nature. The width and depth of your footprints show how much weight you carry. It is a silent message left for any followers or adversaries. You lightly touch your knee with both hands to check the snowshoe's binding points. Every movement in the cold must have a purpose. This light touch is the final confirmation that the binding is secure and in place, and the mental focus before the day's movement breaks. Outside, the vapor from your breath instantly condenses, forming a veil of mist in front of your face. This dense vapor cloud lingering before your eyes shows not just the cold air, but also the sharp contrast between the heat within you and the outside world. Your breathing must be slow and controlled, because rapid, sharp breaths expose your lungs' output to sudden heat loss. The surrounding air is so dry and cold that even the duration the vapor remains in the air gives you a scientific idea about the air temperature. How quickly the vapor disappears or how densely and long it lingers determines how rapidly you must move during the day. This visible breath vapor is actually one of the two fundamental life resources you are constantly losing: heat and water. With every exhale, you expend heat produced to preserve your body's core and vital moisture. This loss is the visual manifestation of the relentless pull of dehydration and hypothermia. Therefore, in this era before modern polar-specific equipment was discovered, covering your mouth and nose with fur or a cloth is not just a storage act but an attempt to reclaim this precious moisture. The ice crystals accumulating on the fabric capture some of the exhaled moisture, and with your next breath, you draw in slightly warmer, more humid air. This is a primitive moisture recycling loop. Your breathing rhythm adjusts your heart rate intervals and consequently, is the switch for your internal heat production control panel. If you take fast, shallow breaths, your muscles will demand oxygen more quickly, producing more lactic acid and tiring you. Whereas deep, slow abdominal breaths carry oxygen more efficiently, expending less energy. It is the physical expression of calmness and sustainability. Unlike soldiers in fast-paced battlefields who take panicked breaths, your breath must be rhythmic and measured. Because here the enemy is not just the cold, but haste itself. The visibility of the vapor is also a tool for understanding conditions. If there is no wind and the air is extremely still, the vapor rises vertically in a column and doesn't dissipate immediately. This means wind speed is near zero, and you must know that under these conditions, sound will carry very far. If the vapor disperses instantly and is swept away in an extreme line, that signals high wind chill, and in that case, your body heat loss, wind cooling, accelerates. Even the sound your breath makes is important. A wheezing sound indicates your lungs and airways are constricted from the cold air, and in this case, you need to slow your pace. A silent, deep breath shows you are still in harmony and your internal balance is maintained. This thermodynamic reading is an instantaneous analysis made by your senses alone in this era without modern scientific measuring devices. Like 17th century explorers determining direction by looking at the sun and stars, you determine your survival indicators by observing your breath vapor. Especially in polar night conditions, when this freezing breath vapor glows with light, it sometimes offers you your only visual reference. It is a short-lived visual preservation of your existence and movement. The passage of your breath vapor before your eyes is a natural warning that it is time to take the next breath. You maintain this rhythmic display and consistency of breathing, distancing you from past worries and future burdens. Just a few steps from your tent, your sled dogs are waiting, showing their first signs of restlessness in the morning. From the freezing calm of the night, you understand their energy has risen and excitement has been stirred from their howls and the scratching of their paws on the hard snow. The short, rapid puffs these animals make are not just a sign of eager impatience, they are also a form of communication hinting at the day's route. A dog's deep whine or light bark gives you subtle details about their physical condition. For example, a low-frequency moan from under the fur piles that serve as sleeping bags indicates not just diminishing patience. The rustling sound of their fur as they rise from the dens they dug into the snow all night reminds you how well their own bodies are insulated. Arctic fur not only keeps them warm but also repels outside moisture, keeping their heat dry. These animals, like you, have a physical mastery of heat control and moisture management. A short, sharp bark from one of the dogs suppresses the restlessness of others in the team and imposes an order of silence. This sound is the sonic reinforcement of knowledge and discipline. As you approach the sled team, the faint metallic jingle from the chain collision breaks the morning silence. Calling each dog by name and offering encouragement is a psychological ritual to boost the day's starting motivation. The dogs are not just a power source. They are also the only living beings with whom you form an emotional bond in this silent, humanless geography. Their strength and health are the guarantee of your survival. If a dog only moves slightly and growls lightly, it could mean it struggled during the night or has stiffness from the cold in some joints, and that dog's load for the day's route needs to be reprogrammed. The howling of these sled dogs is not just a sign of hunger or desire to move. It is also a territorial warning system sent to other creatures in the vicinity. Unlike the mechanical sounds used in forestry, this is an organic and natural warning system. The timbre of the sound and its reverberation time even gives you information about valley width and snow density. The denser and softer the snow, the faster sound is absorbed and the less it echoes. If the hull lingers in the air for a long time, it means air conditions are drier and colder. The peak of their restlessness occurs at feeding time. When the frozen meat is thrown before them, the growling and heavy swallowing signals among them are signs they are rapidly replenishing their energy stores. It is the primitive melody of a survival struggle. These animals' high metabolic rates remind you of the realities of rapid calorie burn. Under the general conditions of that era, sled dogs were seen as the technology enabling civilization to reach the most remote points. For example, in the mail relays of the Canadian region, these reliable power sources ensured continuous communication in freezing cold where horses could not endure. You too must perceive a work ethic from their howling class. For the day's first meal, you turn to your game, frozen solid as ice. It is as cold and hard as a chunk of marble brought from the past to camp. The steel of the sharp butcher knife, upon collision with the frozen meat's resistance, produces a metallic, sharp sound quite piercing in Alaska's silent environment. Slicing the meat is less a feat of strength and more an art of physics and patience. You must find the weakest point by holding the knife at the correct angle to allow it into the meat's frozen crystalline structure. Since the meat preservation method under the conditions of that period was freezing anyway, this controlled breakdown of the crystallized food was the only way to prevent calorie loss and spoilage. The ice slowly yielding from the meat reminds you that fast consumption is not good, a fact you must not forget. You encounter resistance every time the knife's edge meets the meat. This resistance is the microscopic ice needles formed by frozen water molecules inside the meat. These needles can instantly dull your knife's sharpness if you cut at a wrong angle, and in this geography, a dull knife means a significant portion of your hunting and preparation ability is severed. So you try to work the meat by pressing and making short, rhythmic movements rather than chopping. The pieces breaking off cleanly and thinly increases the thawing surface area. A thick piece means you have to wait endlessly for the ice in its core to melt, which is a waste of time and energy. Cutting the frozen meat allows you to feel the air expenses with your exposed hands. Removing your gloves for this is a short but profound sacrifice. The touch of the meat is almost burning cold to your skin. If the air is very dry, the meat becomes more brittle and cracks more easily. If there is a humid air exchange, the meat's outer surface becomes like frosted glass and slides on the cutting surface. In both cases, the cutting difficulty provides you direct data about the changing weather conditions. You now place the thinly sliced pieces near the stove or in a pouch where you will use your body heat. The controlled thawing process begins. Placing the meat too close to the heat only cooks the outside and leaves the inside frozen, which leads to loss of nutritional value and toughening of the meat. Ensuring the slowest possible thaw prevents the loss of natural juices and guarantees maximum calorie intake. Unlike 16th century sailors on long voyages who had to consume salted meat while battling scurvy, for you, fresh but frozen meat is a vital source rich in protein and fat. The moment the meat thaws is also when your patience is tested. The frozen mass, absorbing heat energy and transitioning from crystalline structure to liquid, rapidly draws heat from the surrounding air. If you are holding the meat, you feel the capillaries in your fingers rapidly constricting and your hand beginning to numb. Therefore, you only hold the meat as much as necessary. The first slight dampness of the thawing meat is the sign that it is ready for consumption. Consuming this raw, cold meat is a challenging ordeal. However, it is the fastest and most effective way to deliver the secure energy your body needs. The cutting and thawing process is not just a kitchen routine, it is the basis of ration management. Every piece you cut represents hours of energy. In this scarcity geography, every calorie and every drop of water has value. Separating the fat layer from the meat and choosing to render it over the stove fire provides extra heat and extra fuel efficiency. This economic thinking is the essence of survival consciousness. This ritual is far from the fast consumption of the modern world. Here, each bite is a victory. In these dark hours before sunrise, the moments when the greatest visual spectacle of the sky fades. The vibrant green and pink dances of the northern lights, the aurora borealis, in the depth of the night now pale like a receding dream, a celestial veil turning into a faint green or almost white line of light. This fading is not just an aesthetic loss. It is also a physical indicator of the atmosphere and the coming day's energy. The final moments of the lights require you to absorb their guidance, and the subtle high-pitched rustle caused by this cosmic explosion, while inhaling the freezing air. As the lights fade, this silent farewell reminds you of the compaction of solar winds and Earth's magnetic field. This energy explosion, resulting from the collision of charged particles from the night's saturation with the atmosphere, now gives way to the first lights of dawn beginning to faintly illuminate the horizon line. In modern laboratories, these colors analyzed with spectral analysis are not just a beauty for you, but also an indicator of how close you are working to the magnetic pole. How low the lights appear gives you clues about the atmosphere's density at that moment. As the lights fade, your eyes begin to discern details of the surrounding snow and frozen trees. This visual transition puts your brain into day mode. The faint green line separates into a thin band at the line where the sky meets the snow. This band offers you the first opportunity to predict how long the day will last and how powerful the sun will be. In the deepest winter, the complete disappearance of these lights indicates only a few hours of daylight will reveal themselves. This event is also part of your mental serenity. Experiencing the sealed silence of the night and the constant motion of the lights allows you to detach from the noise and haste of distant civilizations, experiencing only the tranquility created by nature. Like the mixture of awe and bewilderment in the journals of the first explorers to reach the North Pole in the 18th century, you too feel your own smallness before this immense natural phenomenon. The lights becoming completely invisible now means it is time to focus fully on physical tasks. The magical moments are left behind. The fading aurora whispers to you that the high energy in the ionosphere is decreasing. This means interference on radio links or magnetic compasses will also diminish, which is a positive development for navigation. The strong glow of the lights throughout the night indicates a large fluctuation in the magnetic field, temporarily reducing the compass's reliability. Now, as the lights change, knowing that the safety of your technological tools, in your case, the compass, has returned allows you to review your daily plans. The disappearance of these faint colors also determines your energy distribution for the day. If the lights are receding rapidly, it could signal that a powerful sun will arrive at a sharp angle and air temperatures will rise quickly. This increases motivation to set out early. If they are fading slowly and loosely, it means weather conditions will be mild and the weight of winter still persists. This celestial event is not just a spectacle, it is a silent indicator providing the day's weather forecast. As you begin the day, one of the most visible yet vital checks is the thin stovepipe emerging from your tent. You cannot touch the pipe's leakage point with your bare hand. This would cause your skin to freeze instantly. Therefore, you check for any blockage caused by accumulated soot or ice by lightly tapping the pipe's lower section with the outer surface of a thick glove or a piece of wood. External ice formations on the pipe occur when the hot smoke inside rapidly condenses upon contact with the cold pipe wall, leading to soot buildup and moisture seeping into the pipe. This is especially true if the wood used is damp, causing rapid accumulation at a narrow point in the pipe, leading to blockage. A clogged stovepipe not only prevents heat accumulation but also causes smoke to back up and carbon monoxide gas to spread inside the tent, which is one of the greatest and most insidious dangers of this silent geography. Focus on the timbre of the tapping sound. If the sound is muffled and dull, it could mean a thick layer of soot or ice has built up inside. If the sound is sharp and has a resonating metallic ring, it indicates the pipe is clear and airflow is free. This sound analysis is the winter-adapted version of modern industrial pipe integrity checks done with simple instinct. This preventive check also inspects the pipe's structural integrity. Constant expansion and contraction between cold and hot fatigues the pipe's metal and can cause cracks or even fractures at joint points. These cracks can lead to smoke leakage and poison the air inside the tent. Therefore, special attention is paid to the pipe's joints, checking for any soot leakage or ice formation. If a blockage is detected, it means you must disassemble and clean the pipe, a laborious and risky task in the freezing cold. You separate the pipe sections with gloved hands and clean the accumulated residue by scraping from the inside using a long stick or wire brush. During this process, you must be careful not to let the falling soot fall inside the tent or onto the clean snow outside. Because this soot is flammable, and even a small spark can lead to a major disaster. Like the dangerous chimney sweeping on high roofs in Europe, you perform this life-saving cleaning here on an icy roof but under harsher weather conditions. Another purpose of the blockage check is to ensure the pipe's connections, wind cap, or deflector haven't been clogged or damaged by snowstorm. Sometimes accumulated snow can completely block the pipe's mouth. In that case, you need to restore airflow by pushing the pipe from below or dispersing the snow with a long tool. Ensuring the pipe's free flow is a fundamental step not just for warmth, but also for maintaining mental clarity and safety. In these northern latitudes of Alaska, the directional power of a classic compass is not as reliable as in temperate southern climates. As you place the compass needle on a flat surface, you watch its slight trembling and its erratic behavior as it seeks north. This instability is a result of your extreme proximity to the magnetic North Pole. Here, magnetic field lines enter the atmosphere at an almost vertical, not horizontal, angle, making it difficult for the needle to align correctly. Therefore, you cannot place absolute trust in the direction the needle shows. The direction taken from the compass is only a starting point. The amount of deviation depends on knowing the difference between true north and magnetic north from your map, if you have one. This difference constantly changes due to annual magnetic drift and requires you to make daily corrections. This trembling needle reminds you that nature does not like certainty. It is built on variation and estimation. In this geography, accurate direction finding relies more on tracks on the snow, the way wind drifts snow, and the angle of illumination of distant mountains or tree groups against the sun than on a compass. Checking the compass needle in several different locations ensures you are sufficiently away from metal items, devices, or stoves. Because in such a weak magnetic field, even the smallest metal piece can easily deflect the needle. This multi-check ritual is a manual calibration you perform to minimize error margin. Under the general conditions of the era, the flexibility and adaptability of compasses was far below modern standards. Unlike the large, heavy compasses used in maritime navigation, a lightweight pocket compass suffers more from vertical pull. For it to function, you need to lightly tap or gently shake the compass to help the needle settle in its progress. This movement is a test of your patience and ability to understand physical laws. Cross-referencing the compass information with the sun's position is the most reliable way to verify accuracy. These early morning moments when the sun is just on the horizon are the most critical for finding true east. You confirm the difference between the magnetic direction and the true direction by observing the longest, sharpest shadows at this time. The data provided by the compass must be compared with natural data. If the sky is overcast and the sun isn't visible, wind direction and the shapes of constant snowdrifts become your backup compass. Wind always drifts snow in a certain direction, and following these wind patterns can provide you with a long-term orientation. The compass needle's unreliability reminds you how superior your ability to read the land is to technological tools. One of the most fundamental and arduous tasks of the day is obtaining drinking water. You take your heavy, sharp axe to collect water from the frozen lake or stream next to your camp. The solid, dull sound produced when the axe steel strikes is a stark disruption of the regional silence, and can carry for kilometers. It is a warning signal that can alert nearby hunters or wild animals. Breaking the ice requires regular, powerful blows. Each blow must overcome the ice's surface tension and create cracks in its crystalline structure. Depending on the type of ice, this process can be long and exhausting. The white dust cloud spreading from the contact between the axe's sharp face and the ice hangs in the air. The axe must be held at a steep angle to prevent glancing blows, and the force of the blow must be consistently applied. When the first deep cracks appear, you see the ice's resistance is broken. From this point, you begin to separate large chunks of ice using the axe's heavy head as a lever. A sharp, dark blackness of flowing water appears. This is the moment you have reached the source of life. As you collect the shattered ice blocks, you think about how quickly you will melt them. The melting speed depends on the ice's density and purity. If the ice you collect is from the surface and looks more matte, it has more trapped air and will melt faster. If the ice comes from deeper down and has a transparent blue tone, it is denser and requires more heat. This observation determines how much ice to collect and how much time to spend next to the stove. The ice beginning to melt is the result of a great energy investment. The heat energy required for 1 kilogram of ice to become completely liquid, the latent heat of fusion, shows you how valuable liquid water is. Unlike water flowing from taps in modern homes, every drop of liquid for you is the product of significant physical effort. This water will prevent dehydration, cook your food, and is the basic fuel for your body's main engine. As you carry the collected ice blocks to the tent, you place them in a pot you will put on the stove. The light, continuous crackling sound emerging as the ice in the pot begins to melt whispers to you about the day's progress and the conversion of energy. These sounds are the acoustic signature of the chemical components transitioning from solid to liquid. Repeating this routine every day is the strictest and most indispensable rule of survival in Alaska. After the stove is revived and pipe adjustments checked, the smoke exiting becomes the first visual signal of your information and activity. The color and density of the smoke rising from your tent's chimney in the morning's dull, pale dawn convey silent but powerful messages to you. This smoke is not just a product of combustion, it also provides an instant report on weather conditions, fuel quality, and the day's starting efficiency. Ideal smoke, a sign of healthy combustion, is thin, transparent, and disperses quickly. This means the fuel is dry and the stove is burning with high efficiency. This is also an indicator of energy conservation. If the smoke is thick, white, and dense, it means the fuel is damp and producing a lot of water vapor. In this case, the risk of moisture condensation inside the pipe increases and more fuel consumption is required. If the smoke is black and heavy, it indicates the stove is burning with insufficient oxygen or producing too much soot, which increases blockage risk. Black smoke is also a signal easily noticed from a distance and announces your presence to anyone in the vicinity. This can sometimes be dangerous, as there may be no contact in such a remote geography. The smoke's behavior in the sky is also important. If it rises rapidly in a vertical column high up, it means air pressure is high and wind is weak. That is a sign of a good weather day. If the smoke lingers low and drags close to the ground in a horizontal line, it means air pressure is low and wind is strong. That is a warning that weather conditions will worsen. Like the pioneers on the Great American Plains in the early 19th century estimating the distance of distant villages by observing smoke plumes, you too read these natural signals here. This can also be used as a signal for other people in the area. If you are known to be on a trade route or part of an exploration team, smoke of a certain color or distribution pattern could be a prearranged code to convey a specific message or value. It is the most primitive but effective method of long-distance communication in an era without radio or telegraphy. The morning smoke's combination with the pale light shows you the passage of time. The smoke's appearance changing as sunlight strengthens is a sign the atmosphere is beginning to warm. The smoke's dispersion now indicates you can see your surroundings more clearly with your eyes and will encounter fewer errors when determining your route. The day's first smoke is thus a silent starting voltage signaling not so much a physical signal as the day's success potential. The act of dressing in Alaska's freezing breath is not just a covering but a physical science. Each material detail on you must have a specific air permeability, and this is a delicate system part balancing your heat production and moisture expulsion. After the night, while your body is still in sleep inertia, you begin putting on your clothes, feeling the soft, breathable texture of the innermost layer. This layer quickly absorbs moisture from your skin and transfers it outward to the outer layers, keeping you dry. This air permeability constitutes the most important margin of error in your survival system. If the layers are too tight and airtight, the vapor your body produces during walking or work becomes trapped inside. This vapor quickly condenses upon contact with the cold outer layers, freezing and reducing your clothing's insulation value. Wet or damp insulation loses its properties and leaves you vulnerable to hypothermia. This is a concrete manifestation of how inadequate the woolen, tight European clothing of the 17th century was in such conditions. The outer layer must cut the wind but allow some internal moisture to escape. This is a balancing characteristic provided by traditionally used animal hides or tightly woven coarse fabrics. If the outer layer is perfectly airtight, it becomes impossible for internal moisture to escape, and the risk of internal freezing increases. The arrangement and regulation of these layers requires experience and instant adjustment according to daily weather conditions. The slightest margin of error during dressing can have vital consequences. For example, a loose cuff at the wrist or an open neck gap can allow a small, focused wind to seep in, causing local heat loss. This is not just a chill, it is a chain reaction leading to slowed circulation in that area and the onset of frostbite injury. Therefore, each layer fitting perfectly over the other, buttons and laces closing completely, is the most meticulous part of the ritual. This layering system is you manually assembling your own thermostat. For example, before starting a strenuous climb, you prevent overheating and thus excessive sweating by removing 1 or 2 layers in advance. However, you must put them back on immediately after to prevent the moisture trap created by sweating. This is an energy expenditure to prevent a later chill. Placing removed clothing not directly on the sled but separately on your fur ensures they stay dry with constant body heat. This constant management, in an era without access to modern technology, is the art of determining your own fate with fine calculations. Fine-tuning your clothing's air permeability changes according to wind strength. If the wind is very strong, you want a less permeable outer layer. If the air is still, you prefer a more permeable outer layer for better moisture transfer. This flexibility saves you from being dependent on a single set of clothing. The feel of your clothing's texture and weight whispers your margin of error to you. Too many layers mean weight and restricted movement. Too few layers mean excessive heat loss. Your weapon in this desolate place is not just a hunting tool but also a life insurance policy. Maintaining the long-range rifle in the cold requires a mechanical precision where even the slightest error can result in disaster. Metal in this freezing state becomes extremely brittle and its reaction time slows. The expansion difference between the weapon's wooden stock and metal barrel can negatively affect accurate aiming. Starting the maintenance regimen, the first thing is to check the metal surfaces and temperature ranges of the weapon, ensuring they are under control. The greatest danger is moisture seeping into the weapon's moving parts and freezing there. Ice crystals accumulating in the smallest parts of the trigger and mechanism can render the weapon inoperable in an instant. Therefore, you must absolutely prevent even the slightest moisture, like breathing on it, from entering the weapon's interior. This requires a level of attention far higher than the meticulousness of modern shooting ranges. Lubrication is the most critical and misleading step in this cold. Standard oils used in southern climates thicken instantly in these temperatures and impede movement like paste. This causes the mechanism to slow or freeze completely. Therefore, animal fats or specially prepared thinner oils with lower freezing points must be used in very small quantities. Excess oil collects dust and soot, again leading to clogging. You must find the fine line between maximum protection and minimum interference. During barrel cleaning, care must be taken not to damage the inner surfaces with metal brushes or cleaning rod tips. Cold metal is very brittle, and even the smallest scratch can shorten the barrel's lifespan and accuracy. In this environment, a long-range hunt's outcome is determined by a single shot. There is no possibility of a second chance. Therefore, you clean the mechanism systematically and in a rhythm. Then you remove all moisture with a dry patch. Your ammunition also requires the same care. Gunpowder becoming damp or the primer failing to react due to the cold means a vital failure. Keeping ammunition in a waterproof case close to body heat is the only way to preserve firing reliability. Like the malfunctions experienced in 18th century conflicts due to damp powder, here you have the weapon's flawless operation against nature's ruthlessness. During maintenance, any slight resistance in the mechanical sounds whispers to you about a potential clog. While progressing on the snow, your eyes constantly scan the ground, searching not only for your own footprints but also for the silent messages of local communities or other trackers. These are much more than mere footprints. They are a visual language presenting multi-layered information about the regional situation, the purpose of the passerby, and how long ago they left. The unique pattern left by the snowshoes of an Inupiat or Athabascan tribe differs from the imprint of your Western snowshoes. You examine the depth of the tracks and the sharpness of their edges. If the tracks are very deep, it means the passerby was carrying a heavy load or the snow was fresh and soft. If the track edges have softened and been smoothed by the wind, it means the track is several days old and is no longer a reliable tracking route. This softening degree is analyzed to obtain general data about air temperature and wind speed. The tracks of local groups are usually more efficient, and less winding. Knowing this geography for thousands of years, they know the routes that cover distance with minimal energy. You observe whether their tracks direct you towards more sheltered valleys rather than steep slopes. If you are following a hunting route, you look at whether the tracks belong to a large animal or a small one. A large caravan usually means progression towards a large settlement. This track reading system is the key to survival and social interaction, like the efforts of recorded American explorers to understand native tribes' hunting techniques. Places where tracks are always cut or change direction give you a silent warning about a danger or a hunting opportunity. Perhaps a bear track means a large predator is active in that area. You must pay attention to small markers left beside the tracks. A broken branch, a stone placed in a certain direction, or a small smoke signal. These could be the personal communication codes of the region's inhabitants. Permission to pass, danger warning, or location of a supply cache. Misinterpreting these can lead not only to route loss but also to potential conflict with locals. Therefore, you must read their tracks and signs with high respect and in detail. Food is more valuable than gold in Alaska's harsh environment. The methods applied to protect it from predators overnight require simple physics and a high level of camouflage skill. Animals like bears, wolves, and foxes have a sense of smell that can detect from miles away, and your high-calorie supplies are an easy target for them. The first rule is to isolate the smell. You store cooked or raw meat in tightly wrapped leather bags or metal containers to prevent its scent from mixing with the air current. This makes it difficult for the animal's high olfactory sense to pinpoint the target directly. Suppressing this smell is a step ahead in the evolutionary arms race of the wild. The storage location must be sufficiently far from camp. Keeping food near your tent is taking a great risk, because it invites a bear or wolf pack directly to your living area. Hanging food from high branches of trees is a standard solution. But in these polar regions, you cannot always find a suitable tree dot. If there is no tree, a deep snow pit or rock crevice is an ideal hiding spot. How well you conceal the smell is as important as the hiding place itself. After placing your cache, you spread a thin layer of snow imitating natural drifts and wind-blown snow. This covering must look quite natural. A pile that is too uniform or excessively puffy immediately attracts a predator's attention. You create a natural rugged appearance by placing small branches or stones on the surface. This visual illusion is a primitive application of modern military camouflage techniques. To misdirect the smell, you sprinkle a strong-smelling but animal-dislike substance like tobacco or a bit of wood ash around the cache. This diversionary scent helps distract the animal's attention and makes finding the real target harder. This camouflage not only protects your food but also ensures your night's peace and security. Successfully hiding your food cache is the final confirmation of the day's successful completion. Thermal escape points in Alaska's icy geography are of vital importance. In case of a sudden storm or extreme cold, natural caves or rock overhangs that can provide quick shelter are a part of daily route planning. These caves offer not just protection from the wind, thanks to the rock's mass and insulation, they also provide a warmer microclimate, a thermal shelter, compared to the absolute cold outside. You quickly examine the mouth and interior depth of caves or crevices. An ideal shelter should have a narrow entrance and sufficient depth. A narrow entrance prevents wind and snow from sifting in while slowing the rapid escape of internal heat. Depth ensures minimal impact from external air changes. You can perceive the ground heat emanating from inside the cave. Compared to -40 degrees Celsius outside, Even -5 degrees Celsius inside is a serious thermal gain. This is the natural heat insulation of the Earth's crust structure, a primitive example of the geothermal balance provided by modern construction techniques. By looking at the freezing marks and ice formations accumulated on the cave's inner walls, you understand the internal moisture level and airflow. However, these thermal shelters can also be places used by predatory animals for hibernation or shelter. Therefore, before entering any cave, you examine the snow and tracks for signs. Bear tracks, wolf remains, or feathers are clear warnings that the cave is inhabited by an animal. In that case, no matter how great your need for shelter, you cannot take the risk. Short-term sheltering is critical for time and energy conservation. Settling into a cave detracts you from your main mission. Your goal is to create an escape plan you can return to in a crisis moment. Therefore, you mentally note the location and visible signs of any potential shelter. This mental mapping ensures you can act quickly when necessary. Thermal escape points are the visible form of your risk management strategy. In this part of the day, I will tell you about the journey and round techniques of ice fishing. Standing on the frozen lake, you feel you are on top of an invisible food source and simultaneously on top of an unbreakable barrier. The act of fishing is not just hunting, it is also a test of physical constraint and mental calmness. First, you prepare the ice auger you will use to open the fishing hole, the primitive version of modern augers or a sharp iron rod. Drawing a circle on the ice to start digging is not a simple preference, it is mechanical control. The circular movement distributes pressure evenly, preventing uncontrolled cracking and fracturing of the ice. The hissing and grinding sound of the rotating steel against hard ice each time reminds you of the solid's resistance. As you turn the auger with rhythmic, continuous motion, you feel your muscles tiring. This exhausting effort shows you how great an energy cost the calorie you will gain has. With each deepening of the auger, the ice shavings and powder tell the story of the ice layers. If blue, transparent shavings come, the ice is dense and pure. If they are dull and white, it means a lot of air is trapped inside, indicating a weaker layer. This is the tangible part of reading the ice's freezing history. When the hole reaches sufficient depth, the moment dark liquid water first becomes visible is a moment of triumph. The silence of the line, usually made from animal tendons, entering the water is absolute. There is no rush in this fishing technique. Patience and endurance are about waiting for the fish to get used to the light coming from the hole and for the bait to move naturally. Unlike the reels of modern fishing rods, the line in your hand lets you directly feel even the finest tug of the fish. While waiting, you notice the edges of the hole beginning to freeze over again. The freezing speed is a thermometer showing how aggressive the air temperature and wind are. You keep the bait alive by moving the line very slowly and rhythmically up and down. This minimal movement is also part of energy conservation. Fishing is not just about providing a meal. It is also about slowing down time, unloading stress, and attuning yourself to the rhythm of polar existence. If no fish come for a long time, you draw another circle parallel to the current hole a few steps away to open a new hole. This strategic movement is not a sign of accepting failure but a forced trial of a different location. In Alaska, a day is a state where the sky and air are in constant warning. Reading the approaching signals of recurring snowstorms is your most important meteorological science. These signals pass not through radio waves or electronic devices but through the finely tuned filters of your senses and experience. The first signal is the color change of the sky. The normally clear, vivid blue tones turn into a persistent, homogeneous matte gray or milky white. This color change means high-speed winds in the upper atmosphere are lifting ice crystals and filtering sunlight. This soft gray blanket is the visual herald of a large air mass approaching. This is like the darkening of the sky caused by low-pressure systems and climate systems. However, here the effect can be much faster and more severe. The second signal is the classification of the wind's timbre. The normally steady or light wind turns into a high-frequency, continuous whistle. This whistling sound indicates wind speed has increased dramatically and airflow is hitting obstacles like rocks and trees hard, creating sound. The bodily sensation indicating rapidly dropping air pressure is also important. You might feel a slight pressure or ache in your joints. The third signal is the clarity of distant sounds. The approaching storm changes air density and pressure, allowing sound waves to travel more efficiently and reach you with incredible clarity. The howl of a wolf, or the cracking of ice dozens of kilometers away can reach you with unbelievable clarity. This acoustic anomaly is a sure sign of unstable air, and that a major storm will arrive within hours. When the storm begins and visibility drops to zero, your ability to listen to these sounds can save your life. The distribution of snow is also a signal. If snow crystals falling from the sky turn into small, hard pellets or begin to drift horizontally aggressively, it is an indicator that wind force has arrived and the storm's onset is imminent. These early warning systems provide you with a vital time window to find safe shelter or secure your camp. Following the rhythm of recurring storms is the greatest assurance of survival in this geography. The tundra is a place where even during the day, absolute silence and vast emptiness reign. In this freezing silence, your hearing ability reaches extraordinary sensitivity, and you begin to catch high-frequency sounds normally inaudible. The nature of these sounds changes in the finest and most meaningful way. The first of these sounds is the sound of snow crystals colliding. The tiny ice particles moved by the wind create a microscopic rustle, or a fine ringing as they move through the air. This sound provides you detailed information about the snow's moisture level and the wind's ground level speed. If the sound is very thin and sounds like glass breaking, the snow is very dry and sharp. This indicates a higher freezing risk. The second important sound is the sound of ice expanding or booming. The deep, echoing crack or long, slow rumble resulting from the reaction of lake ice or permafrost to temperature changes. This sound can carry for kilometers and gives you direct information about tension stresses under the ice. If the crack is very violent and rapid, it means there is a major fracture or movement in the ice sheets, signaling you should stay away from this area. Thirdly, frozen trees or vegetation have a microscopic cracking sound. This thin, metallic sound resulting from the freezing and expanding of water in tree trunks or from ice formation definitively tells you the air temperature is far below zero. This restless creaking is a moment when nature expresses its own agony. Hearing these high-frequency sounds is not just a sensory experience, it is also a survival mechanism. In this silence, even the slightest step sound of an animal or human is instantly noticed. The silence itself gives you a danger signal. If the usual rustles or cracks cease, it can be read that a large predator is approaching the area and all small creatures have frozen in place. The tundra's freezing acoustic environment is a natural warning system keeping you constantly on alert. Confronting the winter camouflage of the Arctic hare is the most masterful example of facing white within white. This hunt is not just about finding an animal. It is an eye and mind test of distinguishing white within white. Their fur, turning completely white in winter, makes them nearly invisible against the snow-covered tundra ground. The success of the animal's camouflage shows you its perfect adaptation. The first part of the tracking difficulty is the ability to see the hare while motionless. Hares remain motionless like icy statues when sensing danger, and in this state, only the shadow casting of their fur or their eyes, usually appearing black, can be the sole clue to their presence. The slightest change in volume on the snow, a slight depression in the snowdrift, can be a target for you. This is the moment the hunt turns into a visual puzzle. The second tension is tracking its movement. Hare tracks can disappear as if they descended from the air or confusingly intertwine. To confuse their enemies, foxes, wolves, they change the length of their jumps and constantly change direction. Sometimes they double back on their own track for a short distance, causing their trail to disappear from its starting point. The shape and condition of the tracks show you the animal's stress level and panic level. Wide, irregular leaps mean the animal is fleeing at high speed. Reading shadows is vital in tracking. When the sun hits at a low angle, a small mound or slight slope creates long, sharp shadows. The hare hides behind these natural shadows, minimizing its own shadow. In this situation, you must separate it from the ground and shadow boundaries. This is a primitive version of the thermal or shadow analysis used in modern flights to detect camouflaged images. The angle of the wind is the most critical data for carrying your scent to the hare or for approaching. The rhythm and appearance of wind-driven snow provide you with a visible map. You must also include the Arctic hare's superior hearing ability. The slightest sound from your snowshoes can cause the hare to bolt instantly. Therefore, you advance with the slowest and quietest steps. Successful hare tracking is a great victory achieved by the combination of patience, silence, and observational power. Gathering firewood in Alaska is not just about supplying fuel. It is a multi-layered task of energy management and careful planning. The balance between calories expended and heat energy obtained is the most basic arithmetic of survival. Starting the wood gathering process, the first task is selecting efficient trees. Dry dead pine or birch is the ideal fuel because it has low moisture content and burns quickly. It provides high heat. Freshly cut live trees contain too much water. They require a lot of energy to evaporate the water before burning, resulting in inefficient heat output. Birch bark, however, is a natural kindling that catches fire quickly even in damp conditions. Tree selection also requires considering your mechanics. A tree that is too thick or requires deep cutting may not give a return on the excessive energy you will spend to break it. Therefore, you prefer medium-sized trees felled by wind or naturally dead. This is part of the strategy of obtaining maximum fuel with minimal power. The rhythm of wood cutting is based on continuity and sustainability. Each swing of the axe consumes your energy and body heat. Swinging fast and aggressively leads to sweating, and as I explained earlier, this negatively affects your clothing's insulation. Therefore, you work with slow, deep, measured blows. You take short breaks every 15 minutes, regulating your breathing, and checking for dampness by feeling your armpits. This is a biological method to prevent energy depletion and sudden drops in body heat. Collecting and loading the cut wood onto the sled is part of the energy cost. Loading wood onto the sled or your shoulders in a balanced manner prevents extra effort during walking. Dry, light wood is easy to carry, while damp, heavy wood slows walking and accelerates fatigue. Like the fuel efficiency programming of modern power plants, here too you must make a constantly changing comparison between fuel weight and thermal value. The distance of the wood gathering site from camp is included in the cost calculation. A location that is too far is a time loss and consumes your return energy. Therefore, It is necessary to use available fuel efficiently and conserve resources in areas close to camp. This balancing act is the basic rule of sustainable life in this unyielding geography. In these moments when the sun rises on the horizon, the danger of snow blindness, photokeratitis, arrives. Snow blindness is not just an eye disease, it is the burning of the cornea, the eye's transparent layer, by intense ultraviolet radiation reflected from the snow. This condition can quickly lead to paralysis for an explorer or hunter traveling on snow because loss of vision means route loss. The traditional goggles used against this danger are not made from modern plastics or films. They are a shading tool made from animal hair, bone, or processed wood, containing an extremely thin slit. The principle of this primitive protective tool is to physically restrict the amount of light reaching your eyes. The horizontal slit provides a narrow field of view. However, this narrow band greatly blocks the reflected intense light rays and harmful UV rays. The inner surface is naturally shaded by being smoked or painted with a dark pigment. This matte, dark surface prevents light that seeps in from reflecting back into your eyes. This simple design amplifies your eye's natural protection mechanisms. This shading is vital not only in intense light but also on days after a storm when the snow's surface becomes crystalline and highly reflective. Using traditional goggles requires constant adaptation. It is necessary to scan the surroundings by moving your head while looking through the horizontal slit. This is less tiring for your eye muscles than constantly moving your pupils. This mechanical scanning gives you a slower, more careful progression rhythm. It suppresses your urge to move hastily and quickly. You sacrifice field of view for eye protection. This shading device allows your eyes to better distinguish contrasts between shadows and open areas. The first symptoms of snow blindness, burning or a feeling of sand in the eyes, require immediate intervention. If this condition occurs, goggles must be worn and, if possible, the eyes rested. Otherwise, temporary blindness can occur within a few hours. In this era before modern lenses were discovered, these wooden goggles were the only guarantee of eye health and navigation. In the evening, you gently rub the strained muscles around your eyes with warm fur to relax them. This passive defense against snow blindness constantly reminds you not to forget nature's inherent ruthlessness, even on sunny days. In the freezing cold of the night, the sleeping bag made from bear hide is the final and strongest barrier between your life and the cold air. This bag's heat capacity offers a natural efficiency unattainable by modern synthetic materials. Bear hide is not just thick and heavy, it also has a complex structure in terms of thermal properties. The secret of bear hide's thermal insulation lies in the density of the hairs and the fat layer beneath the hide. The hairs create countless tiny air pockets. These air pockets dramatically slow heat transfer because still air is one of the best natural insulators. The thick skin and fat layer beneath the hide act as a perfect barrier preventing wind and external cold from seeping in. It is nature's perfect thermal engineering. The weight and bulk of the sleeping bag give you a sense of security. Inside the bag, your body heat is quickly trapped, and a microclimate begins to form. While the outside air may be minus 30 degrees Celsius or lower, the temperature inside your bag remains just above freezing, guaranteeing sleep quality and survival. Managing internal moisture is also important. Although the hide naturally has some moisture-wicking ability, you need to adjust the opening millimeter by millimeter throughout the night to prevent excessive sweating. The bag's weight is also a physical challenge. Carrying it requires high energy, and therefore it is considered only the most vital equipment. In the 19th century, the first explorers had to carry fewer items on long-distance expeditions due to the weight of such hides. This shows how much energy cost is stored in this material's consumption. It requires constant maintenance after use. Keeping the hairs and skin dry is of vital importance. If it becomes damp, its value decreases and its weight increases. Therefore, you need to air the hide at every opportunity, allowing trapped moisture to evaporate. Bare hide not only warms, it also teaches you to manage your environment's rhythm, coolness, and microclimate. This protective layer obtained by taking the animal's life constantly reminds you of your dependence on nature. In these advancing phases of the day, the greatest information dominating your mind is the rapidly approaching and dwindling daylight on the horizon. As you approach the Arctic Circle, the day's length shortens at a geometric speed, and with each passing day, darkness comes earlier and leaves later. This astronomical reality deeply affects the rhythm of your existence and survival strategy. This rapidly shortening daylight constantly reminds you that you have a time limit. Every task you do must fit into a definitive time slot. Every minute you spend chopping wood, hunting, collecting water, or securing camp is an irreversible loss. This situation makes sunlight a natural resource whose consumption you measure, meaning for you, sunlight becomes a measurable and valuable fuel. In these moments when the sun approaches the horizon, air temperatures also begin to drop rapidly. With the disappearance of light, heat energy in the external environment is also withdrawn. This sudden cooling is a physical transition your body must adapt to. Therefore, you must clearly know the moment it begins to set, and aim to reach the campsite at least an hour beforehand. This is a strict appointment made with the solar calendar. The moment the sun begins to lower on the horizon in red and orange hues is observation time. This short window allows you to see distant reference points, hilltops, rocks, tree clusters, with sharp clarity. The low-angled sunlight reveals even the finest details with long shadows, helping you see tracks or hidden dangers more clearly. This temporary visual clarity is extremely successful for confirming your route. This diminishing light also creates mental pressure. The approaching darkness increases feelings of loneliness and danger perception. Resisting this pressure and not panicking is a sign of your mental discipline. As you watch the sun disappear, you ensure everything is completed and all necessary precautions for the night are taken. The end of the day is not just a physical condition but also a mental seal. The breaking of a sled connection is not just a joining, it also demonstrates the basic principles of physics and mechanical engineering. An incorrectly loaded sled increases friction, tires the dogs, and risks tipping over at the slightest bump, which could be a vital disaster. Starting the loading process, place the heaviest items and most critical materials exactly in the center of the sled, where the weight will be carried. Keeping the center of gravity as low as possible maximizes balance and resistance to tipping. This is the key to physical stability. For example, heavy materials like frozen meat blocks and metal tools are placed on the bottom and center line. Light but bulky items, furs, sleeping bags, are placed on top of the heavies and at the sled's ends. This keeps the weight low while increasing the load's overall volume. However, these light accessories must be distributed evenly along the sled. One side being heavier than the other causes loss of control on sloped terrain or during side slides. An important rule is for the sled's front to be slightly heavier than the back. This slight forward lean makes the sled sit better on the snow while moving and makes steering easier. If the front is too light, the sled can bounce on the snow and start skidding. This leads to loss of control. This small weight difference is a vital adjustment for direction. All loads are secured with taut, strong ropes made from animal hides or sturdy fibers. The load not shifting is the guarantee of not only balance but also the safety of the dogs and yourself. Even the slightest shift of the load can disrupt the dog's rhythm and panic them. The binding knots must be strong enough not to come undone. But they must also be practical enough to be quickly undone when necessary. Successfully programming the sled's weight distribution ensures not only the journey's length but also the longevity of the sled's parts. Evenly distributed load reduces stress on the sled's wooden runners and connection points. Thus, the risk of breakage or damage is minimized. This practical engineering is a primitive example of modern logistics services. While crossing a frozen lake, you know the great risk the thin ice crust represents, and that your own weight could break it at any moment. The key to safe passage is not observation, but a silent control done with the ear. You listen to the ice's selection and the acoustic signals of cracks. Focus on the timbre of the sound as the sled's runners glide lightly over the ice. Solid, thick ice emits a deep, muffled, or almost dampened hum. This sound means high-frequency vibrations are dampened due to its weight and structural integrity. If the sound becomes a high-pitched, sharp, resonating crack, it is an urgent signal that a new crack is forming in the ice and tension is spreading rapidly. This is the early warning system of forming cracks. A small crack's formation begins with a low-frequency vibration. You can feel this vibration under your feet or through the sled's frame. This gives you a split second to stop immediately and visually check the surrounding ice. Visible cracks are usually where the ice is weakest and heat can dissipate or contract. The most dangerous cracks on frozen lakes occur where wind and current occur, where two large ice plates rub together. These are the active fault lines where the ice is in constant motion. Passage over these areas can be more detailed and chaotic. If you hear intermittent, rapid cracking sounds, this movement indicates you should quickly turn towards the shore or a thicker ice area. The key to safe passage is moving quickly but not rushing. If the ice is suspicious, instead of slowing down and distributing weight, you can manage to cross it in a short time. This creates a dynamic, not static, effect on the ice. However, this is a maneuver applied with some confidence about the ice's spreading capacity. Listening to the acoustics of every step taken and the sled's groaning on the ice is the most basic sensory training for survival in this geography. The sound of the ice does not lie to you. Cold air affects your sensory perceptions in complex and formative ways, and the most important of these is the dramatic weakening of your sense of smell. Scent molecules that normally circulate in the air and evaporate easily rapidly condense and remain on the ground in this freezing state. This creates a major difficulty for hunting and danger detection. Scent molecules are less mobile due to the high density of cold air and struggle to reach your nose. Your nasal mucosa dries and blood vessels constrict when exposed to extremely cold air. This reduces your olfactory sensitivity. Human scent distribution also slows down similarly. Unlike the sharp scents carried by wind in temperate climates, here scent trails are trapped over much shorter distances. This weakened sense of smell requires you to completely change your hunting strategy. You can no longer wait to pick up your prey's scent from a distance. Sight and track tracking become your primary senses. To make a directional estimate, you need to calculate not which direction the scent is coming from, but in which direction the wind will not carry your scent. Since scent molecules move close to the ground, lowlands and valleys are places where scent trails can concentrate. The weakening of scent perception is also a risk for your own safety. You may not detect the scent of an approaching predator, bear or wolf, in time. Therefore, it is necessary to constantly observe visually and scan the surroundings with your ears. The silence of invisible dangers should not mislead you. In the absence of modern thermal cameras, the place of the sense of smell must be taken by heightened attention and instinct. This situation also has an advantage. It means your scent is also less dispersed. This offers you the opportunity to stalk your prey much more closely. Since predators and prey animals also suffer from the same weakened sense of smell, your chance of hunting more precisely and from shorter distances increases by using wind direction best. This physical limitation of the sense of smell rewrites the parameters of the hunt for you. When night falls and darkness reigns inside your tent, the small flame of the oil lamp becomes not just a light source but also a measurable indicator of your fuel resources. The oil consumption of the indoor lamp and the efficiency of the light distribution provide the reliability of your resource management. The lamp you use is usually a simple container fueled by animal fats, whale oil, seal oil, or crude vegetable oils. How thick and long the wick burns directly determines oil consumption. A thicker, longer wick provides a brighter, stronger light. However, this causes the oil to run out quickly and increases smoke. Smoke not only pollutes the air but also quickly darkens the lamp's glass or protective shield, leaving light fragments. Therefore, the lamp's flame is kept at a level that provides sufficient reading or maintenance light with minimum oil consumption. This dim light doesn't strain your eyes and allows economical use. Light dispersion is also increased with reflective surfaces around the lamp. Placing the lamp near a shiny metal or light-colored fur helps distribute the lighting more effectively inside. This strict control of oil consumption teaches you the scarcity of resources. Every gram of fat is potentially a hunting cycle or vital warmth. Therefore, the lamp is not used unless absolutely necessary. Extinguishing the lamp before entering the sleeping bag gives you the last opportunity to do the day's accounting. Unlike the wasteful lighting of candles or gas lamps used in traditional European homes, your lamp's limited flame reflects a long-term survival strategy with constrained resources. The lamp's faint, flickering flame is a small point of hope and change in the dark, cold geography. Checking the oil level every night is the act of securing tomorrow's costs from today. Life in winter Alaska is a constant and intense calorie war. Maintaining your average body temperature, 37 degrees Celsius, is not a system managed by modern thermostats. It is a constantly burning biological furnace fueled by high-fat and high-protein foods. The cold air dramatically increases your normal metabolic rate. This is a mandatory energy expenditure to preserve body heat. In this geography, calorie consumption can be up to 5 times that of an office worker in temperate climates. This extreme demand makes fats and animal meat the primary fuel. Animal fats have high energy density. The 9 calories burned by 1 gram of fat provide long-lasting, steady, and powerful heat. Since saturated fats are digested more slowly in cold air, heat is also released more slowly and regularly. It is part of the constant calorie expenditure. Your body tries to produce extra heat by rapidly contracting and relaxing muscles, preventing a drop in core temperature. This involuntary muscle activity also requires fuel. If insufficient calories are taken, it stops, and this is a failure warning for the onset of hypothermia. The eating routine is not random. You consume the highest calorie foods in the morning and immediately before a long walk. This provides a ready fuel depot for your body to fight the cold. Dinner should be the heaviest meal, because preserving body temperature during sleep is the most critical thermal battle. The feeling of warmth after eating is direct feedback that the calories consumed are successfully converted to heat. Preserving body heat in this region is not just about preventing freezing, it is also about preserving mental clarity and decision-making power. Even a 1-degree drop in core temperature seriously affects judgment. Therefore, your nutrition is not just a need. It is an investment made to start the next day alert and with a low margin for error. The moment the sun completely disappears below the horizon is the final visual signal announcing the day's end. This short window is for observation from a point created according to a meticulous review. This observation is not just watching the scenery. It involves gathering fundamental information about what will continue throughout the night and planning the route you will take. The observation point should be a high hill or a rock feature offering a wide field of view. From here, you scan a broad horizon with your eyes and binoculars if you have them. The main purpose of this scan is to detect movement in the surroundings and traces of human activity like smoke or light. The thinnest line of smoke or a distant campfire point may be the only way to show other presences in the area. This observation is two-pronged. First, it serves to detect potential dangers, movements of nearby predators, or the establishment of a different faction's camp. The last daylight creates long shadows, helping movements and terrain layout become more prominent. Second, it allows you to mentally record reference points for your route, distant mountain peaks, distinctive tree groups. This visual memory saves lives during major snowstorms when the compass or map can be misleading. Pay attention to the color of the sunset. Red and intense colors around the sun usually mean high pressure and stable air in the atmosphere, a clue that good weather will continue. If the colors are pale and dull, it could be a harbinger of low pressure and an approaching storm. This celestial color analysis is the most traditional way of weather prediction. During observation, you examine your camp's location from a distance. How visible is your fire's smoke or your lamp's light? Is it camouflaged? This remote assessment determines whether you need to take an additional precaution for your night's security. The observation point at sunset is a final moment of confrontation with nature and your own existence. The silence of Alaska's winter is not just an absence of sound. It is an absolute auditory void that also burdens the mind intensely. This endless silence and the weight of solitude can become a psychological burden heavier than the day's physical fatigue. This silence means your own voice and anxieties cannot be suppressed by any external sound. Recurring conversations, memories, and imaginary dialogues in your mind cannot be blocked by the external noise of the real world. This condition, with prolonged exposure, leads to mental fatigue and a sense of isolation. This intense system of being alone differs from the voluntary solitude in European monasteries or retreats. Here, silence is an imposed condition reinforced by the enormity of nature. The weight of silence amplifies your movements and sounds. The rustle of your blanket inside the tent, the sound of your breath, or the crackle of a log are perceived at a heightened level normally inaudible. This acoustic amplification keeps you constantly on alert and prevents relaxation. Mental fatigue stems from the constant state of alertness. Your subconscious knows even the slightest sound could be a danger signal. To alleviate the mental fatigue created by this solitude and silence, you create rituals. Talking to the sled dogs, humming a tune while maintaining your weapon, or keeping a journal are ways to provide external sound security to your own mind. These small vocal actions soften the emotional cold of isolation somewhat. After sunset, the pressure provided by silence reaches its highest level. The clothing of the night and the cold make the feeling of isolation tangible. At this moment, you find consolation in the soft ticking of the stove, the flickering flame of the oil lamp, or the walking rhythm of your own breath. Accepting the mental weight of silence, and seeing it as a companion is the psychological secret of survival in these long nights. Good night.